What do insanely wealthy people buy that ordinary people know nothing about? When companies like Lamborghini and Koenigsegg make limited edition supercars worth, like, 6 million each, those cars are usually paid for before they are done being built. Somewhere out there is a few garages where there are dozens of these insane supercars are just sitting, unused. I can't imagine being so rich that 6 million for a decoration seems trivial. In the days when Concorde was flying across the Atlantic, any private jet owner with a Concorde ticket got priority landing at Heathrow. So wealthy private jet owners would book a seat on Concorde as they approached Heathrow, which they were not going to use, just to get the priority landing. So a few months ago, for the weekend, I went and saw the Hearst Castle. For the uninformed, this is private castle that William Randolph Hearst, the newspaper millionaire, built out in Big Sur on the California coast. He would send private invites to all the intellectual and political elite of Hollywood and San Francisco for the parties that he hosted every weekend. The parties had stopped, but the structure is still there. It was unreal. You walk up to the building, and the doorway has this 30-foot archway over it, carved from stone. Very ornate, angles and Latin inscriptions and all that. And the tour guide is like, this is a Roman archway about 1600 years old. That was the entryway to a cathedral in southern Italy. And you're like, wait a second. I'm in California, and this is literally the side of a building. The whole place is like that. Every room, every wall, every hallway. The dude collected ceilings. He has a ceiling collection. He has like 40 goddamn ceilings from a variety of churches and cathedrals in Spain from the 1300s to 1600s. Each of his 30 odd guest bedrooms has a different antique ceiling that he bought and shipped from a different medieval Spanish church and had his builders incorporate into his mansion. And half those bedrooms also have balconies or windows that were part of Roman villas, and most of the bathroom doors are Renaissance woodwork. The entertaining room, where people hung out and smoked before dinner, one of the walls consists of this big wooden structure. That is where the choir used to sit during mass in some big European church. There are more of those upstairs, in the hallway between his bedroom and the library. The library has like 2,000 Greek urns and amphora. I asked how like this was accomplished. Apparently he had multiple full-time staff working in Europe, whose sole job was to find him 500-year-old buildings for sale, so that he could ship their walls and arches off to California for his castle. This is one of his mansions. This is the 1400s Spain themed mansion. Apparently there's another one further north in California that's 1600s France themed. I haven't read anything about it, but at this point I wouldn't be surprised if he literally bought 6 chateaux, airlifted them from France to California, and stitched them together to make an even bigger chateau. A friend of mine was a server at a country club where the yearly dues were $15,000, and that just got you in the front door. Every round of golf or tennis, every meal, every alcoholic beverage had to be paid for, and you had to spend a certain amount in order to be able to renew your membership for the next year. I saw pictures of people's dinner receipts, and for a party of 6 you could easily expect to see a $3,000 bill. So, suffice to say, this was a club for what I would deem the incredibly wealthy, actors, professional athletes, governors/senators. One insight that she shared from this experience is that rich people talk about/buy things, but really rich people buy experiences. For the most part, people who are rich, worth maybe 7 to 8 figures, want other people to see it. They buy flashy cars, elaborate houses, nice watches because they want you to know how much money they have. They are proud of their possessions because, although they have a lot of money, their new car is still expensive enough to be a significant purchase. On the other hand, really rich people, I'm talking old money high 8+ figure individuals, don't really care about the material things. Granted, they still buy the nicest cars and the blingiest watches, but these purchases are so insignificant compared to their total worth that the objects are almost as insignificant to them as their cost. And why would anybody brag about something that they don't personally deem valuable? These people don't buy flashy things because they're flashy, but because they want the best things money can buy. These people also buy experiences. Their time is their most valuable asset, or at least the thing they place most value on, because it's the one thing that their money can't buy more of. Anyways, this is just my third-hand account of the lives of the rich and famous. Private jets. From what I've heard, you haven't lived until you drive to the airport, park and walk onto your waiting jet and leave, all in 10 minutes or less. No TSA, no nothing. Unless you leave the country, that is, then you have to deal with customs. I stayed at a guy's place who is in the top 100 richest people in Britain, and that dude had a king huge neck set. I mean, it was a huge alcove just full of the stuff. Commercial real estate, mineral rights, and other investment products. The scale of the investment goes up as wealth increases, since after a certain point wealth is self-sustaining if invested properly. They might also have a hobby of buying collectibles likely to appreciate, such as rare cars, motorcycles, or other vehicles, wines, art, and jewelry. These items are ways of holding wealth that rarely depreciate and aren't subject to inflation. I once flew on a private jet to pick up a newly purchased puppy for a billionaire. We flew 2 hours, picked up the puppy at the airport, got back on the plane and flew back. Flying private is probably the best thing ever. You're sitting in nice big leather recliners, Wi-Fi, and before the flight you tell them what you want to eat, drink, etc. And they wait on you the whole time. I should also point out that the jet was a 14-seater. There was only 2 of us, plus crew. Time. You can really buy time. I used to work assisting a chef who did a lot of specialty, vegan or gluten-free or macro or W/E, private dinners for rich people. Not big parties, just small dinner parties. I got to go to some ridiculously fancy penthouse apartments, and I wound up being friends with the son of a very famous musician for a while. Think about all the little things that you do in a day: getting ready in the morning, grocery shopping, cooking, cleaning, making phone calls, paying bills, going to the bank, etc. Now imagine you don't have to do any of them. They're all done for you, and you don't have to even think about them if you don't want to. Your time spent traveling is also at a minimum, because you take helicopters or private planes everywhere. You have so much more free time, leisure time, and you don't have to ever deal with one of life's little inconveniences again. Even the guy I was friends with, who was in college and trying to live a pretty normal life, had meals and groceries delivered, used a car service all the time, had his laundry picked up and done, etc. So he had all this time that normal college kids don't have to do his work, or play music, or whatever he felt like. Everyone can sort of imagine the luxury items, art, cars, jewelry, etc. But the part that is hard for regular people to understand is that, unless you want to, you don't have to be involved in picking out what painting you want, or looking at your budget, or making the deal or anything. You just say, I think we should have a painting on this wall, and then you get one. It's pretty sweet, honestly. All the homes I was in had really great collections of one kind or another, because a rich person could basically have a staff member whose entire job was to find, restore, and display Soviet toy cars or something. I'm in high value insurance. One thing that struck me as odd was a high-end watch club. Apparently this guy pays for a company to send him super high-end watches. We are talking $30,000 plus timepieces. He wears them till he gets bored, then sends them back for a different watch to be worn, as long as he pleases. I'm in a similar club, where company sends me products as needed. It's called the Dollar Shave Club, and I don't even have to return the razors. I work with a very rich Chinese entrepreneur. He smokes black Russian cigarettes with filters rewrapped with 24K gold. Pure excess. More homes. Once you have one pretty nice house you're set, but then you get tired of it, and when you go on vacation it's always trouble with timeshares and hotels. What if we owned a house here? Also, it is almost stupidly expensive for an individual to own a private jet. Even Steve Jobs made Apple own his, but what if there were timeshares for private jets? My sister nannied for an extremely wealthy woman who has a net worth of $2 billion. The stories of her are insane. Like, she was literally crazy. My sister was not allowed to punish or scold the kids in any way. My sister got in trouble for telling the little girl not to run with a lollipop in her mouth. And one time she traumatized the little boy for trying to get him to eat his peas at dinner. Her husband had passed away, and she began having a special relationship with another woman. They were at a hotel. In the living room area the little girl started coughing. She burst into the room topless with the other woman and insisted they call an ambulance, which they did. Of course it was just a common cold. She used to wear her Harvard stuff all the time. Like wanted to make it well known. She had zero common sense, and I don't think she could have been accepted on her own merit. When she was having a stressful day she had to go to the spa, which was several times a week. She told her kids things like, people who drive trucks are workers and are uneducated. My sister saw on her phone one time she had been watching videos of people burning alive. Seems like most of it has already been said, but here's something that hasn't. They buy stuff at different prices. Yep, if you thought that being ridiculously well off wasn't enough, they don't even have to pay as much when they buy the same that everyday people do. I used to run an online game where you could buy in-game items for real money. There was one user who spent about $40,000 over the course of a few weeks. So I chat her, and she's super excited to talk to me because I run the site. I ask her what her story is, and she says that her husband runs massive company that owns lots of movie theaters. We talk for a while and I mention that I'm trying to plan a vacation, but I complain about how expensive flights are. Without a second thought she sends me her login to an exclusive travel club for the obscenely wealthy. It has a standard flight booking interface, think Travelocity, but it's first class only, and all of the prices are really cheap. Like, cheaper than Coach. It doesn't just have flights either, it has 4 and 5-star resorts all over the world. They're all at steep discounts too. I ended up flying to the Bahamas and staying at a 5-star resort for a week. $1,000 for the flight, round trip, 2 people, and $1,000 for the resort, again, 2 people. They also had a sort of private jet sharing thing, which was expensive, and I have no idea if it was discounted at all. I later found out that she was giving all of the in-game items away to strangers. People are weird. Also, apparently she didn't even use the site because she's afraid of planes. What? My wife worked for an insanely wealthy dude in property management, and this story is still my favorite. They should have never given you money tails. He owns horses. Lots of rich, white people do. For Halloween, he took his horses to a retreat where an obstacle course is set up, and rich people ride through what is essentially a field of screams for horses. People are dressed up like ghosts and jump out trying to spook the horses. People are rattled in chains and making horror sounds. Basically it's rich people torturing their horses for laughs. I can see why he'd be great in property management. Access to get out of jail free cards. You don't even have to buy anything, just have the correct level of wealth. Get drunk and run over a bunch of kids. Boys will be boys. One of my good friends is a self-made multi-millionaire who is easily in the top 1%. Through him I've learned a bit about how extremely rich people spend their time. Here are some tidbits. Some of them have their lives run by their wealth. When you have so much money, managing it takes up a ton of time. Being rich almost becomes a job in and of itself. Everything becomes disposable and loses value. My friend's younger siblings don't care about their Lambo or Rolex or Goose jacket because they know they can buy another the second they want it. Kids have a way of convincing themselves they deserve their lifestyle and can become completely delusioned. Organic wines, flying in private jets to stay in a country for a day, ridiculous watches, oil rigs, and private yachts with submarines are some of the things they can buy. Money can be isolating. Many wealthy people realize that a lot of people befriend them and want to use them. So they put up walls, and it can be difficult to make friends.